What if I told you that Bill Gates, one of the richest people in the world, was extremely lucky? Yes, lucky. He was lucky to attend a school that gave him access to a computer when computers were still extremely rare. Lucky to meet Paul Allen. Lucky to enter the computer industry at the beginning of a technological revolution. But here is the question. If Bill Gates was lucky, why didn't everybody else who had similar opportunities become billionaires? That is where the story gets interesting, because Bill Gates' story isn't simply about luck. It is about what happens when luck meets preparation, skill, and courage to act. That's exactly the lesson Morgan Housel explores in The Psychology of Money. I think you should read that book, okay? Today, we are going to look at Bill Gates' story and uncover 5 money lessons you can apply to your own financial life. You're welcome to the Success Money Stories, where we don't just tell the story, we'll find the money lesson inside it. Now, let's go back to the late 1960s. Bill Gates was a teenager at Lakeside School in Seattle. Now, this was a time when computers weren't sitting on everyone's desks like it is right now. They were huge, expensive machines, but Gates School gained access to a computer terminal, and Gates became obsessed. He wasn't just fascinated by computers. He wanted to understand how they worked. He spent hours programming and experimenting, and eventually he met another young computer enthusiast named Paul Allen. That friendship would become extremely important in the history today. Now, here is the first lesson. Lesson 1. Preparation helps you recognize opportunity. Think about this. Thousands of students would have used that computer, but Gates became deeply interested in programming. So when the personal computer revolution began, he wasn't starting from zero. Okay? He was already prepared. This is something we often misunderstand about success. We say he was lucky. Maybe, but opportunity doesn't mean much if you are not prepared to take advantage of it. Imagine 2 people see the same business opportunity. One has the skills to execute, the other doesn't. The opportunity is the same, but the outcome is different. So if you are waiting for your big break, don't just wait. Prepare for it. Learn the skill, study the industry, build relationships, experiment. Because sometimes the opportunity you've been praying for is already around you. You are just not prepared enough to recognize it. Let's experiment the failure before Microsoft. Before Microsoft became a global giant, Gates and Paul Allen experimented with a business called traffic data. The idea was to process traffic data and turn it into useful reports. It didn't become the huge success they wanted, but it gave the young entrepreneurs something valuable: experience. Then, in 1974, Paul Allen saw something that changed their direction. The January 1975 issue of Popular Electronics featured the Atari 8800, an early personal computer. Allen and Gates immediately saw an opportunity. They contacted the company behind the computer and offered to demonstrate software they hadn't even finished building. Then they had to actually build it. They succeeded. And in 1975, Microsoft was born. But notice something. There was no guarantee that Microsoft would become Microsoft. They simply recognized an opportunity and acted. Lesson 2. Failure is only worth it if you learn from it. Trafodata didn't become a legendary company, but the experience wasn't necessarily wasted. Every business experiment teaches you something. The problem is that many people experience failure and only remember the money they lost. Instead, ask, what did I learn? What mistake did I make? What skill did I gain? What should I do differently next time? Because if you lose money but gain wisdom, the experience may still become valuable. But if you lose money and learn nothing, you may simply repeat the same mistake. So don't glorify failure, learn from it. Now let's talk about something uncomfortable: timing. Bill Gates entered the computer industry at an extraordinary moment. Personal computers were beginning to emerge. Microsoft developed software for this growing industry. Then came another major opportunity. IBM entered the personal computer market. Microsoft's operating system, MS-DOS, became part of the IBM PC ecosystem, and suddenly Microsoft was positioned inside the rapidly expanding industry. This is where Morgan Housel's lesson about luck and risk becomes powerful. Gates was talented. He worked extremely hard, but he was also born at a time when the technology he loved was about to explode. That is luck. Lesson 3. Don't confuse luck with skill. This lesson is extremely important when studying wealthy people. You see someone make millions from a business. You might think, I need to copy exactly what they did. But you don't know how much of their outcome came from skill, timing, connections, location, economic conditions, technology, and plain luck. Bill Gates couldn't recreate the exact environment that existed in 1975, and you can't either. So don't copy someone else's life. Study their principles. You need to ask, what did they do that I can repeat? What circumstances were unique to their time? What risk did they take? What advantages did they have? That is a more smarter way to study successful people. Let's look at lesson 4. Own assets, don't just earn income. Here is one of the biggest financial lessons from Bill Gates. There is a difference between earning money and owning something that creates value. If you work for a company, you receive a salary. That is income. But if you own a part of a successful company, your wealth can grow as the value of that company grows. Gates wasn't simply an employee of Microsoft. He was a major owner. So when Microsoft became enormously valuable, that ownership became a major source of his wealth. And this principle applies to ordinary people too. You don't have to own Microsoft. You can own shares, business, real estate, intellectual property, a digital product, or another productive asset. Your salary can pay your bills, but ownership can help you build long-term wealth. So ask yourself, what am I earning today? And what am I owning for tomorrow? Lesson 5. Build wealth, but also protect it. Here is where many people make another mistake. They focus entirely on making money, but getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two different games. Getting wealthy may require taking risk, but keeping wealth requires managing risk. That is why you need savings, investment, diversification, insurance where appropriate, emergency reserves, and most importantly, margin for error. Because one bad decision shouldn't destroy everything you spent years building. This is another major idea in the psychology of money. You don't have to make the absolute highest return. You need a strategy that allows you to stay in the game long enough for compounding to work. Was Bill Gates lucky? Yes. But was he only lucky? Absolutely not. His story contains skill, hard work, preparation, timing, risk, relationships, opportunity, and luck. And that is what makes the story so powerful. We often want success to have one simple explanation: work hard, invest wisely, start a business, take risk. Extreme success is usually more complicated than that. Some people work hard and fail. Some people get lucky and waste the opportunity. Some people are talented but never encounter the right opportunity. And sometimes someone has the unusual combination of ability, preparation, and extraordinary circumstances. Bringing it home, you don't need to become Bill Gates. Instead, ask yourself 5 questions. 1. What skill am I developing that could become valuable? 2. What opportunity am I currently ignoring? 3. What failure can I learn from? 4. What productive assets am I building or acquiring? And finally, 5, if something goes wrong now, do I have enough financial margin to survive? Those questions are more useful than asking, how can I become a billionaire? Come off it. Because you don't control luck, but you can control your preparation. You can control your decisions. You can control how much you save. You can control how you manage risk. And you can control what skills you develop. Here's your final takeaway. Bill Gates' story teaches us something that many people don't want to hear. Success is not always a perfect formula. Sometimes it is skill, sometimes it is timing, sometimes it is risk, and sometimes it is luck. But here is the good news. You don't have to control luck to improve your financial future. You can become more prepared. You can become more financially educated. You can learn valuable skills. You can build assets. You can manage risk. And when opportunity finally comes, you can be ready for it. That is the real money lesson from Bill Gates. And that is what Morgan Housel means when he teaches us to understand the relationship between luck, risk, and financial success. If you enjoyed this story, don't just ask, how did Bill Gates become rich? Ask, what can I learn from his journey? Because here at Don Success Money Stories, we don't just tell the story. We'll find the money lesson inside it. Subscribe for more videos like this, real stories, real money, real lesson. And if you also want to get money lesson from the P-Square saga, watch this video. I'll see you in the next one. On Success.